Hi, I'm delighted to be joined today by Jo Gordon and Jacqui McDermid from Lambeth Early Action Partnership, otherwise known as LEAP, who are going to talk to me about benefits of outdoor learning in the early years. Hi, Jo and Jacqui, thanks so much for joining me. To get us started, could you just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your role, please?
Hello, yes, I'm Jo Gordon. I'm an early years consultant for Lambeth and also a freelance early years consultant. And I work for Lambeth Early Action Partnership, which is one of the 5 A Better Start sites. And I lead on the communication and language strand of LEAP with Jacqui McDermid, and also lead on the programme Natural Thinkers, which is all about connecting children to nature.
And I'm Jacqui McDermid, and I job share with Jo through LEAP and with the Natural Thinkers programme.
Fabulous, thank you very much. So if we can talk a little bit today about outdoor learning and how that's really beneficial to children in the early years. So to start off, thinking about the reforms that have taken place in the EYFS, it encourages practitioners to plan a high quality curriculum across all 7 interconnected areas of learning. So how do you plan your curriculum to ensure that outdoor learning is included effectively across all 7 areas?
Yes, so when we're training practitioners, we give them a whole array of different activities that can be done outside and using natural resources, and all the activities that we suggest can actually be linked to all 7 areas of the curriculum, but however we highlight that as we go along, and some will be more linked to one area than another. And what we find for communication and language particularly, I mean, that runs through all areas, because whilst you're doing your activities, there's lots of opportunity for talk and explanation, because when children are outside, they really want to explore and experiment with what they're doing, particularly with the natural resources, because the resources we provide, the natural ones, they are endless. You know, they don't have to have an outcome or a product. It's a process of them exploring. So you'll find there'll be a lot of creativity happening within the activities, lots of speech and language happening, and questions asked about why things are happening. So that will support their understanding of the world. There's lots of opportunities for literacy, linking books to what's been happening as well. Lots of opportunity for mark making and writing for a purpose. You know, writing down instructions, looking at what they're doing. And one activity I can think of particularly, we like to make structures out of clay and sticks, for instance, and so that can be extended into all sorts of things. So for very, very young children, that could just be having a go at placing and arranging, but as they're getting older and their understanding is developing, it could be looking at shapes or looking at 3D shapes, and you see how that can extend even further. So you can link that to the maths, but also that's very much a creative thing, and can be linked to design and technology, and particularly STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, art and maths. We tend to talk a lot about STEAM as something that can be done well outside, because those areas particularly lend themselves for the outdoors, but all areas of the curriculum can really be accessed. So yeah, basically you need to think about what is it that you want the children to learn about, and then link the activity the best for that. But I would say they're all, because they're open-ended, I mean, you can go off on all sorts of tangents with natural resources.
Brilliant, thank you. So thinking about this, how do you infuse staff and parents around the importance of outdoor learning and the idea that children can be outside in all weathers?
So I think the first thing we have to do before we even look at any of the research about all the benefits of outdoor learning, they're not ready to hear that. We need to listen to their concerns. So the first thing we do is listen to everyone's concerns. It's no point just saying don't worry, because don't worry never makes us feel better about anything. Don't worry, it doesn't go away, our worries. So first thing is let everyone express their views. What are they concerned about? Then we explore, okay, those are the obstacles. Are there solutions to it? Can we do something about it? And it's amazing, in all the training that I've done, there's a solution for everything. And I think once the practitioners especially find their solution to it, they feel empowered and think, actually, no, I can do it. I might not have that great big space that I can see the nursery down the road has got, but I can do something with the space that I've got and the resources I have. So I think, to say, that's the most important bit, enthuse them and empower them and find out actually they can do it themselves, and getting them to be honest and say, actually, I've never had any training on outdoors. I don't know what to do outdoors. And sometimes it's actually taking them back to their childhood. What did you do? And a lot of them will get really enthusiastic. Oh yeah, I used to play with sticks, and we used to play this game with floating things down the stream. And I was like, all those things you can do now with your children. You don't need a lot of resources, so that helps. With parents, I did recently a benefit risk assessment on getting muddy. So what we looked at was, what was all the benefits, what was all the learning coming from playing with mud? When they looked at all the benefits, they go, oh yeah, I can see that now, because all they could see at the end of the day was their child coming towards them in just clothes that needed washing, and parents getting, well, I haven't got a washing machine, I can't get new clothes ready for my child the next day. So all we've done is stress them out, and they couldn't see the learning that was going on. So what we then looked at is, okay, the most important thing is we need appropriate clothing. That's the most important thing. That's probably the resource that I would encourage settings to invest in. Waterproofs. Some families will have it, some families won't have that resource. So we need to be looking at fundraising for that and putting money aside on that. And also writing to parents saying, if you've got clothes that you're not going to be wearing anymore, bring them in, they can be adapted, and find and go to sales, charity shops, and see what can be picked up. So that's how we get over the clothing. Parents and staff also talk about a lot about, it's too cold, I'm going to get cold outside, I'm going to get a cold outside. We always talk about, you cannot get a cold from being outdoors. You can get a chill from being outdoors if you stay in wet clothing. We would never expect children to be left in wet clothing. They would be changed. So we would be looking at that too. And also what I do with some parents, when I've done it on training as well, is get parents to run around, because some parents like get their children with their coats and hats on and their scarves done tightly up, and like, oh, they must have all these clothing on when they go outside. And I said, now let's run around. And when the parents start running around, they start to take off their scarf, they start to take off their hats, and I go, you see, you don't need all your clothing on. Children will regulate what they need, and that's what we make sure with the parents as well, that your children will be kept warm, we will keep an eye on them, but the clothes will be appropriate. Then we can talk about all the benefits and show them all the research about being outdoors. And it's not just about, we need a bit of physical play, it's about how we can access all areas of learning outdoors, as Jacqui has just said, and how great it is for children's wellbeing. And we saw, I think Jacqui meant, like through lockdown, how desperate we were to get out for our daily walk. And if anything, this has actually helped people realise how important the outdoors is when we didn't have any access to it, or very little.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that. So how do you support practitioners to engage children with high quality outdoor learning without incurring significant costs to the setting?
Right, so as I said before, the first thing I think I mentioned is about taking them back to their childhood. What did they play with outdoors? And actually it was with very little, but they were outdoors for hours on end. And I know, and sometimes I think we've got stuck into the role of looking in catalogues. Oh, we've got to get this. This is really important about it. Children don't need much. Children will play with very little. So, you know, you don't need a beautiful mud kitchen. You can buy some beautiful mud kitchens, but you don't actually need that. You need a bowl of mud. You need a bowl of water. You need old utensils. That's all you do, and that's you can easily get from home. So any offcuts, one nursery I go to, they get any offcuts they can. Any lorries passing by with the old pallets, they get the pallets out, they use those. Sticks, stones and leaves, that's all I say is your main resource that you need. But just to say, remember all the games that you played as children. They need to be introduced again with children, because I don't think children are reliant on getting bought things and things made into something, and we need to get them more open-minded. And if we look at the characteristics of effective learning and teaching, it's all about active learning, creating and thinking critically, playing and exploring. Your open-ended resources of your leaves, sticks and stones will provide that as a starter.
Love that. So do you find children's behaviours change when you're outdoors, and if so, how?
Yes, a lot of practitioners we work with often comment on how surprised they are about the behaviours and how they change for children when they're outside. We had one particular example of a child that was a selected mute who chose not to speak, and when he went outside and was doing activities with his teacher, he began to speak, which was a real breakthrough for this particular child. We had other children that they've had very low confidence and self-esteem, but when they've got involved in activities outside, such as gardening and digging and things, it's really enhanced their confidence and been able to. Children also have been able to socialise more. Children that perhaps weren't very social before or haven't demonstrated it inside as much, when they've been outside, they've been actually joined in more and done team activities with children. And we really find through our programme at LEAP, we evaluate children's wellbeing and involvement. And what we are finding is that children's wellbeing is higher. It is because the more they're exposed to the outside environment and the activities that practitioners are providing, their well-being is increasing, and so is their involvement, which is sometimes practitioners are quite surprised about how involved the children can be. I think Farah Lavers, who does the learning scales, which we use as part of our evaluation, he calls it like a fish in water, and so they're feeling, just very comfortable in that environment, which makes their involvement even higher. And we've got examples of children building dens and things, and distractions may be happening around them, but they're just totally focused on what they're actually involved in.
And I think what nature does is it helps children to live for the moment. Sometimes we're rushing around so much to get from one place to another. And actually, we need to slow down sometimes in nature's time and not think I've got to do this activity, then I've got to do that. We've got to actually spend time and look at what the children are doing. I know with I was watching this 15-month-old and they were saying, oh, we've got to go to the park, but what she was doing was actually collecting stones and trying to pile them on top of each other and then watching them trickle through her fingers. She's spending a long time on that, but it was like, no, we've got to do this activity, come on, quickly get her ready to go out. And I think sometimes we need to slow down and look at nature time, because that's when you see the children's real involvement in what they've chosen to do.
And if you really engage and focus on nature, there's so much that you can learn from it. So there is research, and scientifically, the fractals, the shapes that you get outside in nature cannot be recreated. We don't get them in our man-made environments, and such as how the way that trees, the different shapes of trees, how they branch off, you don't see that in a man-made environment. It's only when you go outside you can see these amazing patterns, or they call them fractals, of different shapes around you, and so it can be such a place for wonder and questioning, and so yeah, it's, well, obviously we like it.
That's fab. And thinking about the environment, can you tell me, how can young children learn about climate change? Is that something you can include when you're doing all your outside activities?
Absolutely. So you might think, oh, how young children are going to learn about climate change? It's quite an abstract concept for them. But if we are introducing them to their environment at a very young age and getting them to think about looking after their environment, so even if it's just, parents hopefully do this anyway, we don't throw rubbish on the floor because it doesn't look very nice, and we don't want the rubbish floating away, and it gives you an avenue to talk about why do we not want rubbish on the floor, and you can get the children involved in that, so you can get them doing things like litter picking and looking after the environment they're in. So if you've got growing areas, they can be helping with watering and nurturing the plants, and seeing that if they're nurturing that environment, that the plants then will thrive in that environment, and then they'll learn to appreciate the environment, because we all need to be invested in the planet and wanting to look after it. And if we don't teach them to look after it, or help them to connect with it, then they're not going to appreciate it or grow into adults that will appreciate nature. So I think climate change, although it seems quite abstract for quite young children, it can start as you know, from very young age. It's just basically engaging in your environment and taking time to appreciate it, like Joe mentioned about the mindfulness of it, you know, that awe and wonder of the things around us. Showing children, modelling to children how to engage with the environment, and then that can lead to the more complex conversations of why, and as children will ask questions, so that will open up conversations of why we need to do certain things. Why is it better to walk than not take the bus or the car somewhere? And these conversations, and so they're getting it at an earlier age, then they're going to appreciate it much later on too. And we also would encourage that they think about recycling, you know, so a lot of the activities we can do lots of what we call transient art, where we're doing placing and arranging with our natural resources to make pictures or patterns, but we can also bring in recycled resources that, you know, we use them again and again, and so that we don't create waste. So recycling is also a really important aspect of that for young children.
We found like in one nursery I go to, the parents were amazed at their little toddlers and the 2-year-olds. Like they said, we can't throw anything away. They're taking it out, they're putting it in the right bin, they're telling us where things should go, and they're making us really think about what we're doing. So if we can get to the younger generation now, what a change we're going to make for the future.
That's lovely. Being led by the example of our small children. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So what 3 things would you say to practitioners wanting to develop their outdoor practice?
Well, the first thing is just get out there. Just get out there is number one. Don't keep thinking of all the reasons why you can't get out there. And I know, because people often say to me, were you born loving the outdoors in all weathers? And I said, no. I said, I must admit, because that's the first thing, when it's pouring with rain and it's very windy, I don't look out the window and think, oh, great, I'm going outdoors today. But actually, once you go out there, you just feel free. You just feel so much better for it, your well-being. So I would always say, go and enjoy the weather. See whether all weather is good weather. Don't see it's raining, because we have a thing of say, oh, it's a lovely sunny day, let's go out. We've got to see every type of weather is a great day to be outside. So I would say, go and enjoy the weather, look at the seasons. And I think, as I say, as we said earlier, lockdown brought a lot of people noticing nature a lot more. And I think we need to go back to that and remember how it felt to be able to connect to nature, to look at the trees, to look at the birds. How many people said they really noticed the birds? More birds seem to be around. And I think we need to go to that. So if you want to develop your outdoor practice, what I would say is go out, have a go out there in all weathers. And make it a priority. So when you come to do your planning, because what I often see with planning is we concentrate on the inside. And if we've got time, we'll go outside. No, what I say is if you need to make it a priority, so the first thing you do is plan for your outdoors. Look at what the children are doing, look at what the children are interested in, and develop that. Go from there, work out your outdoors first. So when you come in the morning, set up your outdoors first. I know some places it's hard because parents come through the outdoor area, it's not so easy, but where possible, think very carefully of how your outdoor is going to be set up so that you know and that the children can also support you. But it should have equal importance on your planning document as well. It shouldn't be squashed into a little box, this is my outdoor planning. It should be linked, because it's complementing and extending your provision indoors. It's not seen as just an add-on, it's got to be integrated and it's seen as things on a bigger scale. So basically make it a priority, enjoy the weather and have a go. Just have a go. So some people often ask us about gardening and growing things, but I'm no good, I'm not green fingered. Just have a go. You don't need, and again, you don't need you can grow in cans, you know, recycle cans, food tins of food, recycle them. You can grow in Wellington boots. You don't need a big space to start your growing, and that, you know, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. You have another go, and especially with growing, when children see things growing from seed, it's amazing. And especially with food, if they've planted the potatoes, they've planted the tomatoes, they're more likely to eat it. And then you're growing children to be more healthy as well, and thinking about what food they're eating. And we want to, that's another thing, we need to tackle obesity. And what better way to start than getting the children outside planting some of their food as well. And lovely flowers. So yeah, just getting the seasons. There's loads of advice on Google now. You just Google and there's loads of timetables, what you should grow each month. So you know you can be helped. You're not alone. So you want to do it, just go out and be there.
And you'd be surprised how many children think that carrots come from the local supermarket or the delivery guy.
I love that idea of planting and growing, and the fact that you can do that in just small spaces. So those providers out there that don't have big outdoor areas,
no,
the fact that isn't a barrier to them being able to join in with planting and doing outdoor things as well. So yeah, thank you for that. How often should children go outdoors, and how do you ensure all children have access?
Right, so as we know, the development matters for the EYFS says that 0 to 3-year-olds, children should be out for at least 45 minutes, at least. Now, sometimes I don't see that happening by the time they've brought them in for snack and different things. So I think we need to review your timetable as a starting point and think actually at least 45 minutes. And I think that's how we get the importance up, to show parents as well the learning that's going on outside and how it's developed across the 7 areas of learning. So I think the more that you can show parents as well the learning that's going outdoors and the rest of your team, I think you will start looking at actually we can spend more time outdoors. And again, not just using it's the better weather now. And it's also not about just taking your indoors outdoors, because when we see the summer weather, out goes the tables, out goes the chairs, and actually you might as well be inside. You're not giving them different experiences. So I think you need to plan. It complements the inside, but it needs to be different as well, the experiences that you give on a different scale. So I think, as I say, as the development matter says, at least 45 minutes, we would say longer. We would like to see free flow between the indoors and outdoors for as much of the day as possible. And when it talks about in the development matters for 3 and 4-year-olds, it talks about extending their learning by going to the local parks and on green spaces. So really look on how can I do that? You know, some staff look at like trips later on, like 1 trip a year, but actually how can I integrate that throughout the year? How can I get them to the park more regularly? So that they can get that experience. And also we know that some schools do forest school as well to offer children experiences of forest school. And what we say within our programme that we do is actually all the elements of forest school you can do every day as well within your environment. It's making use of what you've got. And I think sometimes where settings feel that their outdoor space isn't very well resourced, they then spend more time indoors. And I think what we've got to look at is how can we resource our outdoors better? And it's about asking parents, seeing what they've got available, going to your local florist, seeing if they can supply flowers that are by their sell by date that you can use for transient art, you can make for petal perfume. So looking at more open-ended resources. So we would say, go outside as much of the day as possible and look at those children that aren't with you every day. They might have missed that outdoor play. If you're only doing outdoor play for in the morning, what about those children that only come in an afternoon? What's going to happen to them, or vice versa? So I think you need to look at the day for every child, what it looks like in the eyes of every child. And think what resources and how do I get them out? What's stopping me? Maybe, and it's a lot around shortage of staff sometimes. It's not that they're in ratio, but they're not in ratio sometimes to be able to have indoor and outdoor. Maybe you have to close part of your outdoors, your indoor environment off so that you can have more staff outside. Or maybe you close your indoor environment off completely so you can get outdoors. So if you really see it as a priority, you will find solutions to it. But we would say get them out as much as possible, because you can develop your 7 areas of learning outside as well, being underpinned by the characteristics of effective learning.
Great, thank you so much. That's been really, really helpful, and both of your passion for outdoor learning just shines through. So thank you so much for giving up your time for me this afternoon. That's been really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.